Have you ever wondered why members of Congress are reelected to office at staggering rates, even as Americans' approval of Congress's job performance has plummeted? The data show this clearly. Between 1960 and 2022, an average of 93% of members of the House of Representatives were reelected to their positions, while senators tended to be reelected at slightly lower rates. Even they still enjoyed a massive incumbency advantage and on average win election more than 80% of the time. Yet over the same period, congressional approval ratings have languished in the low to mid-30s and in recent individual polls have sometimes fallen into the single digits or low teens. How should we understand this apparent contradiction? Part of the explanation rests in the electoral process, which confers real advantages to incumbent members of Congress. First, incumbents usually enjoy better name recognition than their challengers. Being in office means they've had more exposure to the public through media coverage, constituent communications, and official activities. This familiarity can be a decisive factor in elections, as voters are more likely to vote for names they recognize. Incumbents also usually find it easier to raise funds, drawing on established networks of support to their campaigns. Additionally, special interest groups and lobbyists tend to donate more to incumbents due to their established influence and potential to shape legislation. Incumbents have the opportunity to provide services to their constituents, such as assisting with government bureaucracy or securing government funding for local projects, often called pork barrel spending. These activities can create a positive impression among voters, leading to increased support during elections. Incumbents can point to their legislative and policy achievements while in office, showcasing how their work has benefited the district or state, and using this record to appeal to voters. Incumbents generally have more experience in campaigning and understand the political landscape of their constituencies. This experience, coupled with the expertise gained from serving in Congress, often makes them more effective campaigners. As sitting members of Congress, incumbents often have greater access to media and can garner more attention and coverage than their challengers. This media attention can be used to communicate achievements, policy positions, or campaign messages. Members of Congress also have a franking privilege, which allows them to send direct mail to constituents at the government's expense. While this can't be used for campaign purposes outright, it nevertheless helps in keeping the incumbent's name and activities in the public eye. Sometimes incumbents can influence the redistricting process to create more favorable electoral districts, a process known as gerrymandering. This can increase their chances of re-election by shaping constituencies that are more likely to vote for them. And finally, political parties usually prioritize protecting incumbent seats over investing in challengers, normally giving more support to incumbents. This support includes access to party resources, endorsements, and campaign expertise. Now, despite these advantages, incumbency is not an absolute guarantee of re-election. Factors like political tides, scandals, redistricting, and demographic changes can weaken the incumbent advantage. However, generally, incumbency significantly increases the likelihood of re-election in congressional races. Perhaps not surprisingly, money plays a particularly important role in congressional campaigns. According to data from OpenSecrets.org, between the year 2000 and 2018, the candidate spending the most money on a campaign for the House won between 85 and 97% of the time, while the candidate spending the most money on a campaign for the Senate won between 72 and 88% of the time, depending upon the year. There are a variety of reasons why money, particularly money raised early in the political campaign or even as cash on hand before the campaign starts, is so important to political campaigns. It allows candidates to hire experienced campaign managers, consultants, and specialists in areas like media, strategy, and communications, enhancing the effectiveness of the campaign. With more funds, a campaign can also invest in advanced technology for voter data analysis, campaign management tools, and communications infrastructure, all of which enhance the ability of the campaign to target potential voters, manage resources efficiently, and swiftly respond to changing campaign dynamics. More money permits a broader, more aggressive advertising campaign, including television and radio ads, digital marketing, and targeted social media campaigns, increasing a candidate's visibility and messaging, and potentially swaying undecided voters. And it also expands the ability to run an extensive ground campaign and voter outreach efforts, including hiring more staff, opening more local offices, and organizing more events. A strong ground game is crucial for mobilizing supporters, conducting door-to-door campaigns, and executing effective get-out-the-vote efforts. More resources also allow the candidate to travel more extensively, participating in more events and engaging with larger numbers of potential voters. And perhaps most importantly, more effective fundraising often makes a campaign appear more viable and competitive, frequently generating more support, media attention, and fundraising, creating a positive feedback loop for the candidate. So, given the importance of money and the power of incumbency, who actually gets elected to Congress? Congress has become more diverse and closer to the distribution of the American population over time, but still has some way to go. In terms of racial and ethnic diversity, over the last 12 congressional sessions, the number of black members of Congress has increased from 36 to 60. The number of Hispanic members has increased from 19 to 54. The number of Asian American members of Congress has increased from 7 to 18. And the number of Native American members of Congress has increased from 1 to 5. This means that around 1/4 of the total Congress is comprised of members of color, while about 3/4 are white. By contrast, about 60% of the U.S. population is white and about 40% are persons of color. In addition to being more white than the U.S. population as a whole, Congress is also more male. Men comprise about 71% of the House and 75% of the Senate. Members of Congress are also more likely to be straight, with just 2% of the Congress identifying as lesbian, gay, or bisexual, compared to around 7% of the U.S. population as a whole. Members of Congress are significantly older than the U.S. as a whole. The median age of a member of Congress is 58 years, and the average senator is 65 years old. The median age in the United States as a whole is just 38 years. Members of Congress are less likely to be immigrants, with just 3% of the Congress being foreign-born, well below the 13.6% immigrants represent of the overall population. Members of Congress are more likely to be educated than the average American. 99% of senators and 94% of the members of the House hold a college degree, while only about 38% of adult Americans do. They're also more likely to be religious than the average American, with nearly 90% of members of Congress identifying as Christian. By contrast, only about 63% of all Americans identify as Christian. And finally, the average member of Congress is significantly wealthier than the average American. The median net worth of a member of Congress is just over $1 million, and more than half of all members of Congress are millionaires. By contrast, the median net worth of an American family is about $120,000, and less than 10% of all American families have a net worth of over $1 million. The demographic breakdown of Congress matters in part because of the idea of descriptive representation, which holds that elected representatives should resemble their constituents in terms of characteristics like race, gender, education, occupation, and other socio-demographic attributes. This idea is based on the belief that representatives who share the experiences, backgrounds, and perspectives of their constituents are more likely to effectively understand and advocate for their interests. Descriptive representation is distinguished from substantive representation, which focuses on the actions of the representatives in promoting the interests and policy preferences of their constituents, regardless of whether they share similar characteristics. In the context of congressional representation, there are several key models of agency that describe how representatives can act on behalf of their constituents. These models offer different perspectives on the relationship between elected officials and the people they represent. The delegate model posits that representatives should act primarily as the voice of their constituents, adhering closely to their preferences and instructions. In this model, representatives are expected to mirror the views and wishes of the electorate, acting as a direct voice for their constituents in the legislative process, prioritizing the desires of the electorate over the representative's personal judgment. In the trustee model, representatives are elected to make decisions based on their own judgment and conscience rather than following the specific mandates of the electorate. Here, constituents trust the judgment of the representative, who is seen as acting in the best interests of the constituency as a whole, even if it means making unpopular decisions. This model emphasizes the representative's expertise, judgment, and ability to deliberate. The politico model is a hybrid of the trustee and delegate models. Here, representatives act as delegates on issues that are important to their constituents, closely following their preferences. However, on issues where public opinion is less clear or more divided, they act as trustees using their own judgment. This model recognizes the practical aspects of political decision-making, where representatives must sometimes navigate between constituent preferences and their own discretion. Finally, in the partisan model, representatives align themselves with their party's political platform and leadership. Their actions and decisions are influenced heavily by party ideology and the agenda of the party leadership. Each of these models offers a different perspective on the ideal relationship between representatives and the people they represent, and in practice, representatives may use a combination of these approaches depending upon the issue, the makeup of their constituency, their personal beliefs, and the political context. But that's it for now. Please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and thanks for watching. Bye.